Hello everyone, Mark Sajan again, and today we will unify this mesh. We will create a final version of this. Final is, let me select this guy and see, 1 unit. Okay, so that will be welded and details will be fixed. We will create a fresh new mesh that's ready to be sculpted and for testing animation. Okay, so it's not a manual retopo, but we will do an automatic retopo with some attention to possible issues. Alright, so here we are. Now, depending on the project, we may find ourselves that a few things may be confusing. So first of all, we already know what ZRemesher is. ZRemesher it's a system that allows you to refresh by using Control and drag, and it recalculates the model on the fly, and this is great for creating silhouettes. But we have other mesh formats. Depending on the work that you are doing, some mesh formats are better for certain purposes. So let me just walk you through here what we have, and just having a few notes. So here is this one. As you see, this one is a distorted sphere. It has this little star in the middle. That's the kind of a pole of it. If I'm going solo, I can show this one has something else in the bottom. This was already remeshed, but I think this is a little bit of an issue, so we need to update this. Now let us fix this one. For example, if we want to sculpt it with more details, create a more refined joint, what to do, we can go and press the gizmo and look for the gizmo option is with the remesh by ZRemesher. And what we have here, now we have subdivision levels. So if a message like this appears, that means I have pressed Ctrl D, and you may experience the same thing, but no problem. You can delete the lower. If you delete the higher and you're in the lower level, you're losing data. So don't do that, just delete lower. And as you see, this is not a uniform mesh. So we have stretched out polygons here and there, but we have high density polygons there. And we are losing data basically, and it's unwanted complexity for file save and for speed of work. And also the brushes are not working simultaneously, because what you have, where you have details, it's okay, but here if you start sculpting, you will see that things are a little bit off. So let me just use the standard one. So I'm pulling on, and as you see already, we have this weird form. So this is one of the reasons why we maintain and try to create a good solution that's sculptable. So let me go back and look for the solution remesh by ZRemesher and take a look at the active points count. It's about 4,000, and we have another one too. Symmetry is turned on, which one is quite useful and important because we want to make them symmetrical. So let me just drag it, and ZRemesher is automatically updating. So let me just press Shift F, and as you see, it's 800. Which one is, it's fairly low. We don't have to go that low. 2,000 maybe a good mid ground. And as you see, it's a nice and even polygon size, which one is great for sculpting. We can go in and hit accept, and this is a wonderful layout for using the move brush, BMV. Move brush will respond quickly. We can easily drag through, pushing in without any hassle. We don't have to worry about things. And of course, if you want to add more details to it and start more details to be sculpted, you can do it by subdividing it here. This divide is a little bit different because it will create you resolution levels. Okay, so Shift D, and D is going up between here. But let me undo this. But if we don't use divide here, we can still use the subdivision that we already used in a previous class. So let me go in here, and we have this subdivide. Okay, so subdivide is a permanent. We have no levels as using the Control D. We have just a simple subdivided mesh, which one is still a not so high mesh, but it's decent for creating that content we want. Okay, let me undo this. It is fair enough. So this is about using a ZRemesher to quickly update a symmetrical model and have a sculptable mesh. Now, if you worry about this resolution, we can always crank it up later on. So just because you don't see a super smooth mesh like this, it doesn't mean that this one is not usable. It's really fast and responsive. This mesh overall here, it's not a necessity to have 55,000 there, so we can lower it if we wish, but it's a nice and even mesh as well, so that could be fine. Okay, what else? What's going on? Let me see what's going on with the legs. So let me click in here. This is fairly good enough. This was already sculpted. Here we have some stretches. Now these are the situations where we want to go and do a remesh by ZRemesher and look for the actual count. So 30,000. There was a data with this, so as I've touched it, I've lost the data because it was not accepting. So let me go back and keep it, accept this, and then going back and hit remesh by ZRemesher now and look at the value. It's about 4,000. We can go a little bit higher and see how this will create an even set. Okay, so that's quite, again, it's a quite even stuff. If we want, we can go and sculpt again on this. If we need further information about how to make and how to sculpt, how to use the main stuff, we can load a website and make this make the software see-through. So that way you can just look for the reference and start blocking it out. This way, it's quite neat. If you want, you can also use PureRef for loading background images, or any kind of basically picture viewer can do the job. This is one of the simplest way to create. You can even load video if you wish. So that's fair enough. So see-through mode, that's the option to be used. I'm okay with this, and let us turn our attention to something else. That's namely the head, because we can have some complexity with the head, and maybe we want to create a more sophisticated eye with eyelids and other things. Now, how to do it? So let me select the head. And because I want to work on this one on a different occasion, want to, not isolating them, but just putting them somewhere else to make it a little bit more handy. So let me copy this and select something. Typically, the star is like an empty object, so you can load in basically anything. And I'm pasting this and just selecting the star and delete the star itself. And here we have this mesh. And because I want to update and model a few things, my concern is that I want to have a flexible modeling possibility, and of course a mesh like this is not as flexible. I want to use a simple Dynamesh. Now here's the deal, we have Dynamesh in the gizmo, but this Dynamesh is kind of a one-way Dynamesh, so it will create a remesh as a Dynamesh, but it will not turn on Dynamesh itself. It's using Dynamesh to create the new mesh. But if you check it at the geometry, we have Dynamesh in here, and Dynamesh is not turned on. So I will leave it as it is, going back and just delete this and looking for just Dynamesh and 128, which one is good. So there's no eyeball. We will create the eyeball just in a second. But for now, what my concerns are is just having a little bit more cavity for the eyes, and maybe the nose, maybe just sculpting some wrinkles here and there. So let me go with a BCB brush and using Alt key, and of course I have to turn back on symmetry. So using Alt and Control drag, yes, I can refresh it, it's working, great. And maybe pushing this a little bit in, resize it, pushing this in. I'm not going any crazy miles with this one, it's just simply just updating BMV and Simply pushing this in. Maybe make it a little bit more interesting. And yeah, the eye sockets, maybe we need more in here. And if we look at them from the bottom, just protruding this one a little bit more. And the chin should be somewhat stronger. Yes, we definitely need to build up on volume. So BCB, the upper lip, should be mounted here. And again, it's not the lip itself; it's the whole part. Okay, so I'm not just building on the lip. I'm making the whole part in here. Okay, where the lip is placed. So smoothing it out, and then DS to Debian standard, and just place and look around where I want to place the lip. Probably here, but if I'm placing it here, maybe the chin is a little bit small, so BCB, and adding something up to the chin. Okay, this one is better, much more believable. And of course, the nose looks flat. It looks like a boxer, so why not? Okay, not wasting too much time on sculpting here now, because I want to explain things instead of going to the sculpting details. But this is basically kind of a simple head that's a little bit more detailed. Okay, so Dynamesh, I can refresh this, sculpting on more, BCB brush. And just simply adding a few strokes in here. Okay, and we are good. All right, so that's it. Okay. Okay, so there we are. Now, what about the eyes? Now, what's happening? We have this higher density Dynamesh model, which one is very good for sculpting, but it can be really high. So if you make everything like this, it's not as responsive, and the quality of the surface is never as smooth. So yes, you can crank up really high, but it's you will reach a point where it's not really working well. And the other thing that you may not recognize yet, but if the model is too small, this Dynamesh value will be different if compared to the model if the model is high in size. So a big model behaves differently, so that also has some kind of a limiting factor. We can use Stager for that, but it's a different, more advanced application to be used in the situation like this. So it's time to go and create the eyeballs. So subtool and insert the eye. And that will be the eyeball. Now here it is. So let me show you Shift F directly that what we want. We will paint this eyeball. And because we are painting this, you have to know that when you are painting in ZBrush, every vertex, every polygon will receive a color. So that color is these polygons will become like pixels. So what does it mean? If we have something like this and we have polygons like this, the paint will look different on here because the polygons are stretched out compared to an area where the polygons are not stretched out. So this is why it's a good idea to keep this at the default position. So let me just shrink it down and just move it in and raise it up. And this is just the eyeball yet, so nothing crazy. We will create the eyelids just in a second. Let me pull this back a little bit. And I'm afraid this could be, yeah, this is fair enough. An eyeball should be about an inch. So that's the eyeball. We'll press Ctrl-Shift-D and duplicate it. And rescale it slightly. And press Ctrl-W. Now this Ctrl-W is actually a hotkey that is assigned to polygroups. Polygroups, basically, if you just recognize that, okay, the colors are polygroups, actually. So whenever you press Ctrl-W, it will assign a new color. The only reason I'm doing this to make it different than the other one. So that helps. This is not blue. It's easier to recognize that it's different. Okay, so what's next? We definitely want to use a flatten modifier to just clip up a part, and I'm not worried about clipping this way because we'll go back to Gizmo and adjust this, and let me just crank up the size to add some meat to it. Okay, so this is kind of a decent kind of open eyelid from the front, maybe a little bit sleepy, and I can Ctrl+Shift+D again and copy this one and Ctrl+W to assign a different color, and that is the bottom eyelid. And of course, if we can just alter slightly the angles, move it up and down, but there we are. So Shift F, and that's it basically. And now I know that I have to modify a few things. The eye looks like it sits fairly deep. I'm okay with this for this particle head. It's not a fairly unique head, but why not? So let me just BMV and going in distance. Okay, let me select the head actually. So now I don't keep the eye on here. It's not mirrored yet. The reason is I want to just have a good eye on what's going on here. So we need add cavity for sure. Here we want to add some other cavities. Push this back in slightly. Okay, so that was too much out. And maybe BDS, dim standard brush to just emphasize this, and it's just having the eyeball. It's much easier to deal with, and then just you know, crank it up and separate some parts and add some wrinkle areas. Well, I'll be a little bit drastic with this, but you get the point. Okay, and there we are, much more happy. All right, it's time to make a mirrored version, and we also want to paint the eye. So first of all, if you remember that, we can go with Z plugin and Subtool Master, and just quickly again and mirror, which one is okay. So I'm selecting this one and Z plugin and mirror, and this one as well. So hit it on here, Z plugin, mirror. There we go. Okay, this is nice. So it's time to paint on the eye. Now, by default, every brush can paint, but we have a brush that's designed for quickly start painting. That is called the BPA. B like brush, and P like paint, and A like the simple paint brush. B, P, and A. And the difference compared to another brush is, if you look at the top, we have no Z add. That's a kind of a default thing for most of the brushes that allows you to pull from the surface. But it has RGB channel turned on, RGB intensity cranked up at 100. And if we start, if you're sitting here, we have to make sure that symmetry is on. And this is what happens. So we want to use kind of a grayish color, grayish tone. So don't be surprised when I'm pulling this one, everything becomes gray. And this is not, some people think it's kind of a fault of the software. No, colors are really useful if you are validating your sculpt and changing things up and looking for highlights, shadows, and other things. So this is actually, this is kind of a, it's a tool to tinker with the various tones and refresh your eye if you're tired of looking at the shape. Black is also really cool if you are looking for a silhouette. This is what they did basically here. So before that, many people were just using and cranking this down to fully black, or using V to crank and shift between these two colors. Okay, so long story short, let me go in here and use a middle tone. And when I start painting, don't be surprised that this will become white. So the reason is, as soon as I start painting, this little brush icon will appear. That means I've started the painting mode. So now every other polygon that was not painted will receive a default color. And in our case, that default color is white. So, and now, from now on, this color is not changing. So let me just look at here. Okay, so yep, I have to grow it in the other axis, right? I have to pay attention to where the middle is. Okay, so that's neat. Okay, correct. All right, that's fair enough. So I'm just basically designing things, and whenever I'm changing, these are always updating. The reason they are updating and this one's not, because these have no assigned color. There's no paintbrush indicating that we have ever painted or assigned anything to these models, but this one is already painted, and this is why we have that. Okay, so. And we have this little black in here and maybe a little bit of blackish tone outside, probably if it's too dark. And as you see, the resolution is coming from the size of the pixels. If we have smaller pixels, we have better resolution. If we have larger pixels, we have less of resolution. So that's how it goes. Now, what else? We want to and can add some highlight, a little bit of a whitish tone, and maybe pull in here. Now, if you want to make it more sharp and more clean and more fancy looking, you have to increase the resolution before you start painting, because even if you are cranking up the resolution like Ctrl D, it will be smoother, but it will not, again, it will not repair your drawing. It will not do it. Alright, so let me just quickly add some shade that can really help to see what's going on. Maybe not this tone, but this grayish. Okay, so let's just zoom out and see. Okay, let me go back. So now we have kind of that tone. Okay, now here's the deal. We want to combine this head and weld the eyelids, but how to do it? So the way to do it is we have a couple objects. So first of all, we want to include the eyelids, but we really don't want to include the eyeballs. So how to do it? So first of all, we can move things in this order. If you're holding the shift key and tapping on anything like this, it will put to the very bottom, or it will put on the very top. So these are the eyeballs. As you see, the colors are showing. And here's this little cornered arrow. So if you click on that, it will say start. So this, when we turn on live Boolean process, that's combining 3D meshes. You can combine them into one, or you can subtract them, or you can union them, or you can just cut out one from the other. But what you have to know that every process is there's a starting mesh, and from that mesh you can cut or you can add to that mesh. And we are setting this to start, which was quite obvious, but we are also setting start to the head. So that means it will skip the eye and then it will start it over with the head as another kind of a Boolean project. And these little guys, because this is set to union, these will be welded into the model. Okay, so that's what we do. Now live Boolean is on, start is set. We can go down to the Boolean and go and click in here, make Boolean mesh. So when we are making Boolean mesh, we will end up having a new model, and on the top row we see that the union remeshing in progress. So that's started, and we have a new mesh created, and look what we have. We have an eyeball separated. Of course the paint is kept, but we have the face with the welded parts. So everything that was inside, it's completely gone, and everything is welded. Now here's the deal. If we want to refine this, we can use the BCL clay brush, and Dynamesh is not really a good idea. Why? Because Dynamesh can really kill these beautiful edges. Okay, so once we have these, and especially for cartoony faces, we want to keep those. So geometry, and let me just demonstrate Dynamesh. Oh, and gone. All right, it's not that bad, but it's gone. It's not as sharp. So to maintain that, we can modify this. But here's the deal. I'm using smoothing, and I can't really smooth this. I'm also giving it a try. Can we? Okay, may I? So yeah, okay, this is it. Right. Okay, so this is the original. So smoothing is not really working, and the clay brush is also not really working with this. So what to do? We have a special tool. This is called Sculptris Pro. And this was a little independent software years ago. It was a 21 megabytes beta little executable that was amazing to practice freely sculpting. And the algorithm behind it is it's a super gem. So ZBrush bought and integrated it, which one is amazing to have. So what it does when you turn this on, and I have this clay brush, and I start using this, as you see, it's updating the 3D geometry like a charm. Okay, and we can fill up gaps. It is excellent to fix issues. And we have when we have a larger brush, usually those freshly created triangles are also larger. Okay, so imagine that we have this big brush. You can see how big the replacement polygons are. All right, so Shift F and see what we have here. So we can really fill this up. Okay, so this one works great with the whole body. You can also use smooth, so Shift F, and let me just show this. Holding down Shift, and that also works. Okay, so Shift F, and yeah, you have to pay attention where and how much you use it, but this is smoothing out other areas as well. Okay, so now we have quite a lot of details, and of course, if you want, you can add wrinkles with this. You just have to turn on Sculptris Pro. Okay, so what happened? I forgot to turn on Symmetry X. So guess what? I don't want to do it over, but here it is. Because I'm working on the right side of the model, I mean right side of the head and not the software's right side. So right side of the character, we can mirror it and weld it by using geometry, modified topology, and mirror and weld. And it's from this right to left, it will snap it. Okay, so we don't have to worry too much. All right, so that's neat. Now I want this head to be placed in the original model, because why not? And also want to make a copy of the eyes, so I will just now hit in copy, going back to the original, and I will actually delete this head and paste, and there we are. And here's the other one. Select this copy, going back to the original head, and select the eyes. And these eyes are just really small, so I will just delete those and hit paste, and there we have the new eyes. So we have this progress. Okay, so that is one way to fine-tune some parts and deal with some details that you can't really just simply sculpt as they are. It's much better if you are combining. Basically what we did with the body, we did it in a smaller term. Now here's another trick that you can use. If you let me show you the fingers. So when you see the fingers, that you will see, let me select this, you will see that we have different colors in here, and you see that there's an overlap, and there's some kind of a mess around here. And here I'm ready to explain this technique. So when you have meshes that you don't really want to weld right away because you want to move them independent and fine-tune things, what you can do is you create a few pieces, then merging them together and then sculpting as one unit. Now how to do it? So subtool, insert, and I will just simply insert the sphere 3D. And let me show this. Okay, and P perspective, it's not needed. Let me pull this in front, and yeah, it's a huge one, so it's time to scale it down. And as usual, right now I'm not worried about the size, but of course you if it's a finger, it should be smaller, but we're good as it is. And the typical thing is going with flatten, and flatten from the front and flatten from the sides. Now this front is I'm looking for the for the alignment here, looking for this alignment. So this is basically the front of the model. This is why I have flattens on this side, that side, and this area called the front. But of course, technically speaking, this is the front of the figure, okay? I'm just working now front of the hand. Okay, so let me go in here, back, and look for the values because we want to make it symmetrical. So I'm holding Shift key and looking for its 0.2 minus and 0.2, which one is great. And of course, we want to have extender and pull this out. Which one is, again, it's looking functional. So let me hit and oh, maybe a little bit more. And there's no edges. Now, I don't care about this right now because instead of creating edges by using the segment cone, I will just simply make it symmetrical and using the remesh option. So, but how to make it symmetrical? Because it's not a left-to-right symmetry. It's not a left-to-right symmetry because I'm working in the rotation. So I'm going to change this up. Now, here's the deal. So in the transformation, we have the symmetry settings. If you remember, we have the X key that's activating symmetry. And by default, X is working like this. So if I'm using X, it's mirroring from left to right, but it's completely off for us. So instead of that angle, using the Z angle, and can you see this is the Z axis. So that should do the job. Now here's the deal. It should do the job. Clearly, we have Z on, activate symmetry on, and then still doesn't know where's this point. Now look at, if I'm walking the distance, my brush is traced on the back of the figure, and the reason is it follows the center of the scene. It follows the very, very center of the whole set, instead of respecting the actual position of the model. So for this, here we have the local symmetry button. And when local symmetry is turned on, it will recognize the object's position in the 3D space. And according to that position, it will update the mirroring axis. And now we have this mirror. Great. Okay, it's time to make the remesh. Remesh by ZRemesher. And it was 8,000 polygons for this tiny little piece, which one is just ridiculously high. Let me go into about 400 and wait for it and look what's going on. And there we are. Okay, so we can crank this slightly up and double it because we have quite a few details, but this is enough. Okay, so not going crazy. This is about 1,000 polygons. It's great for roughing out a hand shape. Let me hit accept, and it's not an even. It's not a perfect symmetrical thing. If you want to make it perfect, you can do it. But right now, just make it simple. It's absolutely sculptable, and symmetry is on, so we can sculpt it. Now, here's the deal. It's time to make a copy of it. So Ctrl Shift and D and make a copy of it. And that will be the other digit in a row. Maybe it's not as long. This one should be even longer. And this one is here. And just the middle. Okay, and Ctrl Shift D. And this will be the last one, the smallest one as well. And rotate it. Okay, so we are talking about the fingers basically, and it's time to fix things up. Now I will not go through this, but symmetry is on. Let me go in, and I have sculptures mode on, so let me turn this off and using just the smoothing brush. Now here's the deal. For the smoothing brush, you already know that when you're holding down the Shift key, it will smooth things out, but when you're holding down the Shift key, start smoothing, and then releasing the Shift key, that is a different algorithm, and it's not as destructive as the simple smooth. So that you can do. And of course, if you hold on Alt and clicking on the model, it will select the other subtool. So now I'm just doing these smoothings here as well, a little bit of a smoothing. And okay, I also want to change the silhouette, so I'm using a brush. Now, to make it, to make sure that the whole mesh is moving, I like to use the BMN. That's the Move Infinite brush. and that way I can be 100% sure that everything is grabbed. Okay, it's a nice and even grab. If you're just using the simple brush, it's not simple move brush, it may not work as well as this one. Okay, so here we definitely have a little bit more belly. The palm is coming in, but that's it. Okay, so what about the joints? What about some sculpting stuff? Now here's the deal. If you take a look, can you see the color? Red. Holding Alt key, clicking on this one, red. Holding Alt key, clicking on this one, red. Now, these are identical. The number of polygons are the same. I haven't changed anything. The polygon groupings are the same. So what's the problem with that? We want to merge them as one unit because it's tiring to always selecting these individuals. So you can do it, and it's not that bad if you are just simply try to, again, manipulating, fixing things. But once you have a basic layout and the angles are okay and the proportions are okay, then you want to handle them as one unit. So here we have a function called merge. Merge will actually not welding, but kind of joining the models. So if I'm hitting merge down, it will merge this one with the bottom, and the bottom is happening to be the next part, and then the other one happened to be the next part. So that also works fine. Or we can use something else called merge similar. Now, if you're holding down the control and hovering over merge similar, it will tell you that merge similar is similar. That means the same poly count. So if I'm going on here and the message is, if you read that, this operation cannot be undone. Okay, it's the same with delete. So whenever you have to delete or merging things, especially at the beginning, just press number 9 and it will create a quick save, and you can access to this quick save from the lightbox anytime if you have if you change your mind or something was not going as planned. So merge similar, I'm hitting on this, and boom, this is just one finger. Now this selection could be a little bit of an issue because right now every color is the same. So just to separate that and have something more controllable stuff, we can use polygroups, auto groups. Now sometimes the colors are so similar, I like to hit on a couple of times until I see something that's actually I can recognize. Okay, now these are different colors. So what's the benefit? First of all, because these are merged, let me use a BCL brush. That's a clay brush. I can go through here and sculpting, and it is, these are not welded, but these are really working as one unit. Okay, so if I want to sculpt here these knobs, just pushing in here with the BMN brush, and just add some, you know, little bit of anatomy to this. It's more rounded, it should be more rounded. And as you see, I don't have to switch between the brushes because of the models, because it's now welded and behaving as one unit. Okay, so that's the benefit. And when you're smoothing, the smooth will actually just separate them apart again. So you can use this back and forth BCL and just pulling this in. And once you are using a Boolean to weld them all together, then it will be just fine. All right, now here comes the question. So we have auto groups, and how to work on this. So some cases, if you want to work on this, you can hold down Control and Shift, and that is switching to selection. Now selection is basically, if it's a point and click stuff. So when you clicking on the part, it will select the actual poly group. When you hold in Ctrl Shift and tapping outside the model, everything will come back. So tapping on the model, it will select that singular stuff. Ctrl Shift and tapping outside the model, that will bring back everything. If you do a Ctrl Shift and drag, it will just flip the selection, invert the selection. And you can also do Ctrl Shift and holding Alt key, and that will hide the thing that you have. But this is basically working even without Alt. So if I want to hide from this and starting from outside, this is when this Ctrl Shift and Alt will become handy. We will do a lot of selections. Now here's the deal, you can mask actually a part, when it's isolated like this. So you can press Ctrl A, Control is the masking, and then Ctrl Shift and Tab, and now everything is there. So you can work on these areas but not on the other. This is one thing that you can do. And the other thing is, because we have polygroups, you can also use the gizmo. And with the gizmo, this is what happens. So you can hold down Control and tapping on the part, and now that part is automatically masked and the gizmo is placed there. But the problem with that is the gizmo is not exactly placed as it should be, so it's maybe misaligned, especially if you have kind of a vertical orientation. This is why we do this handed vertical orientation in the finger. And once you're done with the vertical work and the standard work, then you can move it in position and rotate it around. But for, you know, creating stuff, it's much easier if you maintain that stuff. So I'm holding the Alt key, and to reset this cant, this little angle that was generated by, you know, creating the Control and Tap quick selection, quick masking, I'm holding Alt key and it will reset the orientation. And if I'm holding this one and clicking on this one, it will reset to the position. Now sometimes it's not working, then I'm pressing X to get rid of symmetry, tapping on now it's going back to center, and I'm pressing symmetry back again. Okay, this is happening if you have local symmetry on and you have an object not exactly in the middle of the screen, but this is why we're doing this too. So again, sometimes if you see that this one is not working and it's not putting in the middle, just turn off symmetry, go click it back, turn back on symmetry, and you're good. Now if you want to move the whole finger, for example, let me just Control drag and remove the stuff. You can do it. Or if you want to move it from the very root of the finger, you can still hold down Alt key and use these fins, for example, or the arrows, and move them. But right now I'm just maintaining and making sure they're only moving on the green axis. Okay, so that's where we are. Now we can move and rotate. If you want to, for example, move this in the end, Control Tap, holding Alt key, reset this, hitting on the position, moving in, checking. If you really want to make it center, turn off symmetry, hit it back, turn back on symmetry, holding Alt key, moving, and it's in the middle, and now I can just rotate it more and more. Okay, and you can do the same with the middle one as well. As you see, it's much easier if you adjust it right away, but this is how you can adjust it once you're done. Okay, so let me go back and accept this, so no masking, hitting Q to sculpt, and of course if you wish you can Ctrl Shift and D and copy and just scale it down to create another finger, and you know, rotate slightly, create some spread. Now for this spread, I have to turn off symmetry because it will just mess up things. I'm not using symmetry anymore when I start rotating things around, so this is why it's good if you have the basics there on the fingers. And Ctrl Shift again and just making a copy and shrinking down and rotating even more, because this is the pinky and we have a natural arc in there, so this arc is also visible. Okay, so that's basically how you do the fingers. And once you have these basics, then you can use the live Boolean to weld everything together, and that would be your next move. So let me just quickly delete these guys. Goodbye. Goodbye. Hit it OK and delete those. We already have the fingers. So what's up next? We have the head, we have the hair, and we have a lot of different parts. So first of all, we have the hair, which one is great. And the hair is an independent mesh, so I will turn on start. So that means this will be a start of a separated Boolean process. In the neck, there's a neck. I want to update the position, so head will be next, and the head is again a fresh start. Neck and eyeballs, just to make sure the eyeballs are not included in this whole thing, I'm holding down Shift and going at the very top. Eyeballs will be part of the model, but eyeballs won't be welded. into the model. Okay, so that's what I want to avoid. So separate model, new model starts, and then everything here from A to Z will be welded into this guy. Okay, so again, just for safety, press 9 to quickly create a project file set. And let me hit Boolean mesh, some Boolean, and make Boolean mesh. There we go. That will take some time. Unit mesh in progress, and I see something is updating, and I'm looking for the numbers. Typically these numbers can help you out. So let me click on this, Shift F, and this is 4. Yeah, that's a different model. This is 2, the head, and this is 3. Okay, something else. All right, so this is our model. We have so many things going on. So we have the eyes, we have the hair, and we have this complete welded stuff. Okay, so again, what's next? What we did here, basically, that is what we can repeat. So before we creating a finalized, nice, and fairly clean mesh of this, we have to address the differences in resolution and have to just blend them to clean up the intersection. Of course, if it's your goal to keep and maintain these edges, you can do absolutely. But it's usually, if you have less edges, that means you can create a final model from less polygons, because edges are usually dense areas. Okay, so turning on Sculptress. It has a hotkey, but it's the backslash. It should be the backslash. Yep. It shows what's the code, and as you see, when you're turning on this one, it will become purple. When you're using Control, it will become yellow. That's the other thing. Shift is for now. Shift is a special color because we have this one, but it's usually blue. But if you have Sculptress on, it will become this faded orange, and Control Shift is the white. So usually white is color off selection. Okay, so just quickly, I'm using the Shift key and making a smoothing attempt, and this is working nicely. Of course, if you want to fill it up, it's better. For example, here I want to fill up. I will use a BCL clay brush and just fill up with light strokes. And it's my fault. I forgot again to make it symmetrical. So let me just quickly go in here and geometry and mirror and weld. I can do it right now because it's basically a simple mesh. It has no subdivisions. It has no crazy asymmetrical details. So I can do this, and I'm cranking this up. Now this will take a time. I will not completely do this. I'm just showing you some examples for here. For example, this one is critical. We don't want to keep such complex edges in the middle, and here as well. So this is kind of a nasty thing. You don't want to overcomplicate an armpit with so many polygons. So this is why I'm just filling this up and using the smooth and just basically the rough. So what we are doing is we want to keep what's most important to resemble the design. So I'm using this too as well. Okay, so yeah, just giving you examples. Okay, so there we are. Now what we want to do is, this is a quite Frankensteining mesh. So we have no subtools, but everything is welded and in different resolution, and some are detailed, some are not as much. So first of all, we want to have a good overall mesh. For that, Dynamesh will not do. Dynamesh is great for creating single parts, or working on a silhouette, creating the ears, nose, pull out things. That's working great. Simple remesh is great for simple parts. But once you have more details, you want to have subdivisions. And for subdivisions, you have clean such meshes like this, but all over the model, not just on the arms, on the pecs, or on the stomach. So for that, we are using the ZRemesher. The simple ZRemesher, what we already have seen, this one. Just please come on. this remesh by ZRemesher is overly simplified stuff. You're not adjusting too many things, but in general, at the geometry, you have ZRemesher with some controls. Now, first of all, we have this target polygon counts, which one is now it's 200,000, and we want to end up about 10,000, maybe more, well, maybe less. We'll see what's going on. And right now, I'm just quickly creating a rough estimate. Okay, so I'm curious how ZRemesher is working by default. For that, just for safety reasons, I'm duplicating this mesh. It's not a necessity technically, but it's a good thing, a good habit. So Ctrl-Shift-D, and duplicating it, and I will turn this off. Now the visibility of the original mesh is turned off. We have a separated copy, and we can walk down. Geometry, ZRemesher, symmetry is on. So that means when we are hitting on ZRemesher, it will calculate with symmetry in mind. And target polygon count, it's 5. I'm curious, it won't be 5,000. So it's kind of a range. So I'll hit ZRemesher and see what it does. And it will take some time. And basically, it's looking for the original shapes and trying to maintain kind of an edge flow. So it is pretty smart, and this is one of the features that makes ZBrush and made ZBrush big, because just in a couple minutes you have this remesh, and then you can work on this. And here's the deal. Can you see why we have smoothed out this area? We have smoothed out the chin area, and where we have the smooth parts, this transition, the polygons will become much bigger, much more fluent. The edge flow is much better. Here we had no time to do it. So where this is not smoothed out, for example, the chest is okay, but at the bottom of the chest is a little bit of a mess. In the stomach area, it was not smoothed out, so it kept the edge, and this is why we have quite a big amount of points, and this is 14,000 points. And here you can see how it's simplified again, because we have used the Sculptress Pro to make it easy to deal with. Okay, so this is not a manual retopologized mesh. This is called retopology, where you are creating a new structure based on an existing geometry that supports your motion and rig later on. It has two ways. Basically, there's an automated and there's a manual way. You can also combine that. We will do a combination later on. Right now, we are just trying to make it automatical, but trying to make it as good as possible with the automatic solutions. Now, there are different tools, but in general, please look at this. It's not that bad. Okay, so of course, if you're smoothing out more things with more careful areas and removing some hotspots, then this whole remesh will be better. I'm okay with this right now, and but we can alter things. First of all, the reason we want to alter things because it's a sculpting remesh. What does it mean? For sculpting, the resolution is pretty important. So the ZRemesher by itself is these settings are trying and maintaining a somewhat uniform polygon size. So what you have here is polygon. You will see and find the similar size polygon in arms. Even if for animation, we don't really care that much about the arm, especially if you have clothing. You can use big chunky polygons. You can also do the same thing at the stomach, okay? But for sculpting, if you want to sculpt on a vein or sculpt on abs, you have to have resolution. So this is the default setting. Let me just turn this off and see what's going on. So here's the original model, and let me turn off the visibility of the new one. And I will just rename this to original and use the other one and rename it to test and 5. Okay, 5 is not the number of it. It's about the target polygon count, which was set to 5, but it's tripled that 5,000 amount. and going back. Okay, so now what to do? Here's the original. Let me copy original, Ctrl-Shift-D, and we have original. Let me rename it to weighted. Okay, so it will be a weighted thing, and we can paint actually resolution. So let me go back, and it's time to explain what's going on. So we have the paintbrush, BPA paintbrush. We have used already in the eye and did this wonderful eye. Let me show this. Look at me. Hey. Okay, so enough is enough. We can paint resolution. So to allow ZBrush to recognize that we have painted resolution, we have to turn on use polypaint. And here's the deal. Color, as soon as you're switching on this, color is changing. So this little salmon-like pink color is coming up, and as you see, it's updating. It doesn't mean it's the entire model is pink. It means, you know, when a color is not assigned to a model in ZBrush, that means whenever you change a color, it will automatically update it. Okay, so don't be sad about that. It's just simple update. It's kind of a preview. Okay, so I was messing with the color, but what you have to use for the actual color is this slider. So when you go in here and type in 1, that is, okay, let me just turn this on and off and type in 1, and I was just, yeah. Now type, and it refreshes because sometimes it's just off. So now that's a white color. So let me move it around and it updates. And white means standard resolution. If you crank this up and you start painting with this color, let me press L. L is lazy mouse. And okay, we have with the paintbrush, let me turn off the sculptures function with the paintbrush. Okay, because it's messing up things. So now I can paint with this resolution, this 0.7. But here's the deal. Let me undo this. Because 0.7, it looks like it's not that big compared to 1. But it is big. It is too much. So let me just, going back, set this to 1 and repaint this area with white. And paint this area with 1.4 or 1.3. Okay, so it is not much. It's not much of a crazy color, and because it's not much of a crazy density, it is still 40 or 30% more compared to the forearm. Okay, so sometimes it's hard to see. So what you can do is you have the material, and that is flat color, and that may help. Okay, so flat color will show colors better. The other thing is, let me go back and choose the basic material. Sometimes it's hard to paint evenly because, you know, there's so many little parts and you don't really see, and you may miss an area and what to do. Now here's a little trick. You can hold down Control and use mask, and there's mask where you are, mask lasso, and you can mask lasso. Control tap outside the model. Holding down Control and tapping on the masked area, it will blur your mask. And then you can go to Color, Fill Object, and it will paint the entire part with the color you have selected. Okay, so that's pretty neat. All right, I want to do the same with the head. So right now, Control, Mask Lasso is selected. Selecting the head. I can add to selection. I'm holding Control and Alt, and that removes from selection. So if I want to make a corrections, holding Control and tapping in the model, it blurs the area. Control tapping outside, it will switch the model. And what color I want to make it slightly more dense, so 1.5 maybe. And hit and go to Color and Fill Object, and now it's a little bit more pink, okay, compared to the hands. All right, so what else do we want? We want to lower resolution in the chest and lower resolution in the arm. So for the chest, this is what I'll do. I'll start grabbing around, and this is the chest area. Control Tab, switch, set density to 0.7, 0.7, and this will be a bluish color. So color and fill object. Okay, so that's nice. And for the arms, we'll just grab this area, add to the selection, Control Tab, Control Invert, and set this to 0.8. So slightly higher density, and going with color and fill object. And 0.8, I will repeat this somewhere around the legs. And don't be surprised where there is no color that still has a density. It's just a default 1 density. So that's fair enough for the legs, or for the feet, for example. Okay, so color density 0.8, control to blur, tap to invert, and go back, and color and fill object. And there we are. So now we have some color codes for the ZRemesh model. And let me go back to ZRemesh and look for the target polygon count, and I will lower it to 2.5. And the fingers crossed, and let us see what will be what will end up. Okay, so it will take some time. Symmetry is on. Now we have polypaint density changes as well. So, and the original mesh is 200,000. Of course, you can do this process once you have a higher density mesh, but the more density you have, the slower the process is. So Shift F, and let me show this to you. Okay, so now the face, it has a lot of things going on. Let me show this. Select this guy and simply move it. Let me turn off symmetry and move it away, and can see how much density differences we have for around the chest. There's a lot going on. You can see how much the polygons are much bigger here compared to that, and that one is 14,000, and this one, if we are clicking on this, is 8,000. Okay, and look, lovely. Can you see the hands are almost identical, but the forearm, these are much smaller polygons compared to this. We can even go lower with the painting. Look at the chest and the back. So there's quite easy to clean this up. Okay, so let me just go back and look at the legs and the feet. So yeah, we can bend it here. This should be fixed again because it was wrong from the get-go. But there we are. Okay, let me undo the changes. Let me select this guy and Ctrl Z to move it back to the original position. So we have now weighted. It's about 8,000, which was a great mesh. Now, how to move forward? We will not go into the next step, but just in theory, what's the next process is we can turn on the original mesh. And the weighted mesh, sorry, let me turn this off and show just the weighted mesh, and pressing Ctrl D to subdivide it. And when I'm subdividing it, there's way more polygons now. It's about 34,000. I will turn back on this original mesh, and everything else, eyes, everything else is just turned off. Here we have something called projection. Now, on top there's the original. On bottom there's the recalculated weighted mesh. So I can hit on project, set on project all, and it will snap my surface onto the underlying mesh surface. Let me show you the isolation in solo mode what we have. So we have a low resolution mesh, Shift D, I can walk down. Can you see how it picks up all the colors? But when I'm pressing D, it has a higher density. I can press Ctrl D again to subdivide it further and use the project all again. Let me leave solo mode. By the way, project all works with solo mode as well. So if you're disturbed by the overlapping, let me show this project all, and it will just again pick up the crisp lines as well. Okay, so it looks nice. You will reach a point where the actual model, it's about 136, is even higher in resolution. Now it's 500,000 polygons. We can use project all, and that may be enough. Okay, so just a second. And sometimes ZBrush is freezing and it looks like it can't really make it, but it will do. So when you see the window popping for a second, it can do. When it becomes white, some cases that means it will crash, but not all the time. So be patient when you're using ZBrush, because it can really load memory and CPU. So that means you may feel that it's not responding while it's just so busy to do the job. And as you see, we have, let me go back to Q and use a BST standard brush. And no, I don't want to switch. So BST standard brush, and I can use the smoothing function. And as you see, because the mesh has really high resolution, so it even picked up the errors coming from the underlying mesh. And if we want to go BCT, clay buildup brush, we can do it. Oops, why is it not working? Draw size, yeah. So draw size was left up. So we can really sculpt in here, adding more details, smoothing out things, etc. So using the BDS dem standard and adding more separations to the muscles, you know, whatever. So it's up to you if you wish or if you want. Maybe here's some more separations coming back and smoothing. Okay, so that's basically the workflow. We can add the the chest part, nipples, and so on and so on. So that's basically the process. And now you have a subdivision level model. That means you can walk down, use this resolution for an animation based mesh or testing your animation, and you can use this mesh to generate your textures and create a highly detailed looking rendering. Okay, but it's all the next parts. All right, thank you very much for your attention, and have a good time and have fun. All right, see you next time. Goodbye.